Hi folks, Dave B, the Boogeyman 49i. Uh, there are an awful lot of really good content creators out there for FS19, FS22, excuse me. But I know that a lot of the major ones aren't really big on logging, and I was curious. So I decided to come in, and I wanted to test out and see FS22 logging. Is it any better? Overall, what I found out, I've taken, as you can see, all three of the different major brands. We've got tested out each of the harvesters as well as each of the forwarders. And what I found so far is it seems like, to me, from what I've seen, and I am not a professional by any means with logging, but it feels better. Um, Still not perfect, but when you go and you pick up multiple chunks of logs, they feel stickier. You know, they hold together a little bit better. I don't seem to have logs go flying out of the boom. Um, there's still movement. I've noticed that, excuse me, when you have a log sitting in the crane, it starts to move out, or it can wiggle and move a little bit. I've also noticed if you look in the back of the Rotna forwarder, you'll see that the logs are not straight and even down the back of it. That's because without having the load strapped down, the logs on the left were starting to shimmy and move back even when the forwarder was standing still. Another interesting thing with the forwarders is, sorry if that's loud, is if you look at the booms, boom length, 20 meters. Boom length on the Ponzi, 20 meters. Boom length, if you look at the upper right, you look at the boom length on the Rotning, it says 25 meters. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at the booms on the two, the Komatsu and the Ponzi. They're both supposed to be 20 meters, and they look a little bit longer to me than the Rotney, which is supposed to be 25 meters. But either way, which is a sad downside with the Rotney because of the fact that it has that massive bed for forwarding. It is amazing for being able to get so much more wood out of the woods than the other two with the narrower beds. So being able to spend more time, if you're planning on harvesting a stand like this where you've got nice big open trees lined up, you can go for a lot longer before that bed is full than the other one. But these are all three pretty much pieces of equipment that we're familiar with. Hang on a second, let me just turn that automatic start off. So these are all three that we're familiar with. They're, if you had the Rotney DLC in 2019 or in FS19, then you're familiar with it. But I've got to say, these, I don't remember them looking so good on 2019. Obviously, this Cobra is new. One of the things you'll notice it's different. Now you can still operate from the cab. You can turn your direction around, so you can run it pretty much the same way you have in the past. It actually will operate very similar to the Rotney, which has a separated cab from your boom itself, as opposed to the Komatsu, where you're swinging with the boom. With the Ponzi, you're actually driving forward in this direction with your boom at the rear. All three of these, for the little bit that I've done so far, handle the logs great. They fell the direction, controlling the direction of the fall seemed much easier. Controlling the logs when you're working them on the ground seemed easier. One thing that I did notice is, and this may be part with narrow heads on the Komatsu, and I noticed the same thing actually with the Ponzi. These headers, even on trees this size, now these aren't massive trees, but those heads, cutting heads, are not actually resting in on the base of the tree. And they actually, even on these trees, will tell you too large for cutting tool if you get right down on the ground tight. Um, the Rotney opens up nice and wide, and it's actually easier to get the shackles right in and wrapped around the base of the tree so you can see where your cutting area is. Beyond that, all three seem to control the heads well. The movement seemed really good. Between the three, I think the only major difference that I noted is the Rotney, and now that we're actually seeing weights and tonnages, you actually can notice the difference. The Rotney weighs about 3 tons more than either of these two. These two are both around 21, and Rotney is around 24.8, I believe. So you'll notice a difference. It actually, now that weight makes a difference, you can actually feel, and it may have been before, but you can notice the difference when you are boomed out, extended. There's less tipping. You've got better control of the logs. You don't have to drag it across the ground back towards you before you can control it. I felt like that had a little bit better control. Beyond that, the only other thing that I've noticed, and I'm not sure, I'll probably be sending in a bug report just in case, but for whatever reason, the Ponzi Bison has a reverse control for your crowd and extend functions on the boom. So when you're extending it out and you're crowding it back in, those are reversed from the crowd and extend functions on everything else. So you actually have to push if you're on controller, and I can't speak for PC, I'm on PS5. If you're on controller though, you actually have to push forward on the left stick to crowd the boom arm back in. You have to pull towards you to extend the arm back up. I mean, it's not a deal breaker. Other than that, the Bison was every bit as good as the other two for controlling logs and moving logs. But other than that, I would say at this point in time, my feeling is it perfect? No. And there are still some odd things, like a machine that is 24 tons can't drive over these little trees. I don't know about most of you, but that is just get in the way of wood if you were actually out in the woods. So that seems odd to me. But other than that, and I would assume there are limitations. There are bound to be limitations on what you can and can't do. But so far, I feel like this has been a good improvement. I feel like they have made some changes. It's not like a massive shift, but there were some tweaks. Your clamshells seem to hold the logs a little bit better. I wasn't dropping and flinging logs, I was still able to a couple times do 3 logs at the same time, even with these smaller grapples. They'll shift, but they're not nearly as bad as they were in FS19. They certainly feel more solid, and like I said, it almost feels like they're stickier. There's something that they've added in the way the logs interact with the grapples themselves. But overall, it's a nice improvement on what they have. Even for equipment that we've had before, I would certainly suggest at least giving it a try to see how it feels different. And then eventually, if I get back around to it, I have some other equipment that needs to get tried out, including mulchers. They said we can get rid of bushes now. So, hopefully, if that all pans out, I may take a little bit more time and give these a try. We also have some new mechanoid-looking log grapples for the wheel loaders, which obviously that just looks too cool to not give it a try. And I will uh-oh. I think, I don't want to know what he's doing on my tire, but apparently I can block the path. But I may give these a try as well. This Tesla's a new logging trailer that we haven't seen before, so I'm going to give that a try. Give some other equipment a try, but just based on what I've seen with this equipment up here, I'm feeling pretty positive. So, hopefully it's helpful for anyone. That's what I'm finding so far. It feels a little bit better. There are some pluses and minuses to the different equipment, but otherwise, it feels pretty good. So, Elm Creek, I think we're going to do some logging. Take care.